Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. I am back with Torunn Grønbekk. Did I say that right again?
Yes, it's always excellent when you do it. I can't even say my own name now. People ask me, so how do you pronounce Torunn? And I'm just, I don't know. Torunn, Torunn, we would say, but I mean, no one can say that anyway.
Because everyone pronounces it a different way.
Well, but there is no English pronunciation of Torunn.
Yeah.
So, I don't expect people to speak Norwegian. Yeah. So just say whatever, like how you would say the letters. I don't know, Torunn. And I always do the Torunn.
Yeah.
And I went on a podcast once where a guy introduced me by talking about Jane Foster and Jason's Torunn. And I'm like, oh, Torunn, there you are.
There we go. It's hard to code switch if like you want to pronounce it the Norwegian way and then come back to English.
Yeah. But at this point, I just answer to whatever. Just be like, yeah.
We're talking about three things, three characters specifically: Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel; Jane Foster, Thor / Valkyrie; and Frank Castle, the Punisher. Let's start with Carol. So as of the moment we're recording this, Captain Marvel Annual #1 just came out, and you have you wrote it, Carlos Gomez drew it. How was that like working on the premier female Marvel superhero?
I love Cap Marvel. I think she's one of the best developed characters in the Marvel universe. I think we all have some sort of idea about who she is, which is a little terrifying. But I felt very much like I knew who she was, and I really wanted to write her well. So I was extremely excited, and then I immediately ran into the problem that every Captain Marvel writer does, which is like she is exceptional. So you have to figure out how to somehow give her a challenge that makes sense. It's like it's the Superman problem, kind of. But I had 30 pages, and I had all the freedom in the world. And I was talking to our editor, Sarah Brunstad, who was like, what about the Starjammers? We can do the Starjammers? And then the story was there. Like immediately, I had a story the same hour, basically. And I kind of, because when you have 30 pages, you can do it doesn't seem like that much of a difference from your usual 20 pages, but like you can just do so much more. And you can have all the silly little details and actually do some world building that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do in 20 pages. So we just kind of dove into it and tried to make it like a space adventure that people would remember somehow. And I hope we achieve that. I've been getting a lot of nice messages today. And a lot of people who are Captain Marvel fans have told me that they like my voice for her, which I'm very happy about.
Well, how would you describe your voice for her?
Aspirational, just who I want to be. I don't know. The thing is, I enjoy the idea of being a woman and in many ways feminine, but also being strong and unafraid. It is sort of what we all dream about. So you can kind of say the things that I would be too scared to say, even if I'm furious, even if I'm just fucking livid. I wouldn't say it because you have to be careful about all the feelings and the men's feelings. We do a lot of work to make sure that men aren't offended and kill us. But if you're Captain Marvel, you can offend whoever the fuck you want, which is actually how I begin the book, just by offending people, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, you spend Carol is in jail for this, right?
Well, she gets thrown into jail, which is fun for me. And then things happen in the jail. I don't know. Well, I don't want to spoil anything because it is. I've seen that kind of one of the main spoilers is already making the rounds on Twitter, but I don't want to say anything in case you want to read it and not have the surprise spoiled.
What was it like putting together, Carol back with her old crew, the Starjammers?
Well, I'm not sure if you have the same irrational love for the Starjammers as I do, because it is like they're a very fun bunch of people to write. And I like that. I can kind of, there are some kind of cult things when you suddenly you meet people who love it as much as you do, and then you're like, oh. And I've had a lot of those experiences after we announced the book. People just being like, hell yes, Starjammers. I love the Starjammers. I had all the Starjammers. Just I've read all the stories thousands of times. So it was a little terrifying, but mostly extremely fun. Like, at least when I got like into it.
I remember seeing the solicit for this and then thinking, Carol in the Starjammers, that's weird. And then only a few days later did I realize, wait, no, that's not weird. Because then I remembered, oh, she's hung out with the Starjammers before, but she was just binary, and I'd completely blocked binary out of my memory for some reason.
Why? She's so cool as binary. Yeah.
She is, but my mind thinks of her as a different character.
Yeah, and I've seen there been some confusion because this is very much Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel meeting up with the Starjammers. But it all sort of makes sense in the end, I hope. And I think one of the main joys, one thing is the Starjammers, but because I went into it trying to make, like, if I'm going to make a prison, I'm going to make one that is it's horrible enough that it could happen, but still, like, there is some world building in there. And then having Carlos on art, who just kind of took that ball and just ran with it, and it's so good. Like, it's sometimes when I write descriptions, I keep writing, and at some point I have to be like, no, you can't write down everything you want on a page. That it just doesn't, like, I can't take the image I have in my mind and get it into the description. So at some point I have to stop. Also because, like, it wouldn't be, the more details you put in there, the more you're going to limit your artist. So you have to kind of try to, yeah. But I was hoping that Carlos would find some joy in just putting in all the tiny alien details, and boy, he did. It's so good. It was such a joy to see the first page, because it could have been like just a space station, but he just went with it.
With the Starjammers, how do you think, what do you think makes the Starjammers work? What is the appeal of the Starjammers, and why is Corsair the best Summers?
I don't. Well, they work because they're pirates, and pirates are fun. Just by it's the law. It's just space pirates are doubly more fun. That's just how it is. And to have like this strange collection of pirates on the ship together, though it's just going to work. And then, of course, he is like he's in my head. Corsair, like, I'm proud to say that I got him to take his shirt off in this story too, because he always ends up shirtless at some point. And do you think he's the best one? Because to me, he's a bit of a joke, but I love him. I love him a lot.
I think the Summers brothers, like, can be so annoying that by default Corsair is the best Summers. So
sure. No, but I mean, no, I will go for, I have, after writing him, I would say that I absolutely love him. But he's, I don't know, he's a punchline to me, but I love him.
Yeah, that the whole design is funny.
To me, it's just the shamelessness of his character in general I find delightful. And I like when Hepzibah is just, to just get her calm criticism of him, just lovingly in there. I like it. It's
What
good.
what makes Carol tick as a character? I will be asking this out of all the three characters we're talking about.
What makes her tick?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not sure, except for your usual kind of injustice, and I think I like her moral compass because it's not entirely black and white. She kind of understands. I think she understands like true injustice, not just moral ones, which I enjoy. And I keep wanting to spoil this thing. I'm not going to do it. I'm trying not to. I have a moment.
If you have to, you should.
Okay, I will. No, I have a moment in there where she loses her temper a tiny bit, and that is because one of the prison guards he saps her with a thing that would kill some. Like he thinks it's going to kill her, but obviously she's not going to be killed by some puny little prison guard. And that makes her angry, more angry than a lot of the other things that happened. But just because he didn't need to kill her at that point, but he still was kind of offhandedly trying to do that. I enjoyed that.
Prison guards do that stuff? I'm in shock.
Prison guards here it's so much fun. I would say that designing this prison, I took a little more joy in it than I should have, because it is horrible. And I saw someone, I read a review saying like it was intelligent kind of social commentary, which I hope it kind of is, but it's also just me being like, hey, if I can imagine it, someone would do it. Because that's how we work. We are horrible people. We are a horrible species.
Did you ever see that story about how there was a Donald Duck story in the 40s where Karl Barks had him make up a chemical, and then like a decade or two later, scientists actually made that chemical and it was exactly right?
No. What? That is fantastic.
It's incredible.
So what is the chemical?
I don't know. It's
a bad thing?
It's some really complicated thing, but I don't think it was a bad thing. But they were like, let's just make that Donald Duck thing, and then they did it, and it came out to be exactly what it was in the story or something.
Fantastic. I do hope that at some point in the future someone has read my Captain Marvel story and be like, hey, this is a hell of an idea for how we can make a prison work really well. It's going to be great. Yeah, I'm going to be long dead by then. It's going to be
What do you think about, because a lot of people are like keep your politics out of my comics, but
I don't even know what that fucking means anymore. I think that people in general, people who complain about politics in anywhere, fundamentally misunderstand what is human rights and what is politics. Because very rarely do we talk actual politics in comics, but when we're just doing, hey, this person has a right to exist, that's not really politics, is it? Like, it's just, if that's politics to you, then you're in the wrong Reddit forum somewhere. You should get out of that thing. Should get off the 4chan. Just.
Yeah, but in this case, like you said, you thought it, and then somebody might do it. So I'm like, that's what writing is, right?
Yes, and I think like we're talking about prisons. Of course, there is you have private prisons, and you have obviously prisons for money, and it's not great. I'm not sure if you can call it politics even, because then again we're back to just the basics of how we're treating people. I don't know, but I would probably never write a story just to talk about actual political things, because it's not necessarily interesting to me. I would, but obviously my my sense of, I wouldn't even say right and wrong, just my view on life and people will necessarily come through. And when it comes to superheroes, we do write about injustice a lot, and there is a lot of injustice happening that people kind of cover up under the guise of politics. But if you look at it, by the end of the day, most of it, we're talking about human rights.
Yeah. Ms. Marvel, Binary, Warbird, and Captain Marvel. What's the best incarnation of Carol Danvers?
Well, I'm gonna go with Captain Marvel just because. Yeah. Would you? I don't know. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Best costume, best name.
Yeah.
She's cooler than Marvel. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I think when I didn't read Captain Marvel back when Kelly Sue and Jamie McKelvey did kind of the big like revamp of her, but I think that's when I started getting interested in the character. And I caught it when the trade came out, and I was like, oh, there is something here that I find refreshing in a way. And I think the work that Kelly Thompson is doing now, she's so good in everything. I read the Black Widow thing she wrote that's not out yet, and I wasn't sure if it was Kelly or not, but of course it was Kelly because it's just so good that you sit there. But yeah, she's great. So I think the work she's doing on Captain Marvel is just it's developed the character so well, and I'm so happy I could kind of borrow her and have a 30-page like space adventure.
Why do you think Carol pisses off so many people?
Well, because she says what we want to say. Like she just tells people what she thinks instead of being scared of how they'll feel about it. And that would piss people off in general. But you mean like as like the internet, why there are YouTube channels dedicated to angrily talk about Brie Larson?
That too, I guess.
Yeah, because I have no like one stupid person can always find a friend. I don't know why people would do. I at some point I was watching something on YouTube, fell asleep, woke up, and the algorithm had just kind of made its way into the anti-Captain Marvel universe. And I don't know why you would do that.
I don't understand it.
Maybe I might envy them a little bit, because if you care that much about something, maybe your life is just fun and nice. If you can wake up every morning and be like, I have purpose, I'm going to make an angry YouTube video now. You like if that's all it takes to feel like a person, I might envy it. I don't know.
I just think it's really funny because like there's so much crap in the world, guys. There's just like so much crap in the world. Like legitimate crap. Like just be mad at real things.
Yeah, it's so easy. There's just endless opportunities for fury. I don't know.
Speaking of super incredibly powerful female superheroes, Jane Foster, the best. So in June you'll be kicking off a 5-parter with Michael Dowling, Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor.
Yes. Can we talk about Michael for a bit? I'm not sure. Has any pages been released yet? I don't think so.
No, just the 2 covers. Okay. One by Peach Momoko. It's
so cool. I was when I saw it, and I saw it before everyone else, and I thought maybe I should just hit her up now and be like, can I buy it so I can have it? But then I forgot, and now it's probably gone. Yeah, but Michael, dear goddamn Michael, he's so good. And the thing is, because there is almost like a distance in like it feels epic whatever he draws, because it's just there's so much emotion, and I keep telling him to write things and to draw things that are just impossible. Like there are no references for this. I'm just like, yeah, well, I think in my head it looks more, and then he keeps just killing it. So I keep just upping, being like, hey, can you and he just keeps doing it. So you're gonna see some pages. They're just so good. And I don't know, I can't wait, is what I'm saying. And I can't wait for people to see Mike's like Jane Foster Thor, because
What is the basic premise of this 5-parter that is coincidentally coming out 1 month before Love and Thunder?
yes, coincidence. I like it when people go, oh, it's just because of the movie, they're just trying to make money. And I'm like, well, first of all, that most of publishing is making money. And if you think for a fucking moment that the people involved care like any less in any way about what we're doing, just fuck right off. Like this has been such a like the story. I'm not sure how much I should say.
Well, I
No,
just
I
want to
don't
say
know.
for all of the people thinking it's about, making the money, I'm like, well, you'd be, well, duh.
Marvel wants to make money. Do you want to make money? I don't understand. But I'm still not sleeping at night. I'm still working like a week over whatever after the deadline, because it's not there yet. Like we don't care any less. We still kill ourselves to try to make it as good as we can.
Yeah. You still do the best job you can.
Yeah. And then we hate ourselves because it's not good enough, and then people tell us nice things, and that's how we live. Like we wait for the compliments at the end.
So
it's great to be a writer.
Quick elevator pitch, 2 sentences. What is the 5-parter about?
I'm trying to remember what was in the very brief description that I did not write.
It said that the mighty Thor is missing, and Jane Foster is visited by Mjolnir, so she must become Thor again. That's it.
Well, I don't know. I sincerely don't know if I should say anything more. I don't want to ruin it, but it is Jane. And she does get her hands on Mjolnir because it crashes through her window. And it's bloody, and she doesn't know what's happened.
What possible reason, and I can understand if you wouldn't want to answer this, but what possible reason would she have to become Thor again instead of Valkyrie for this adventure, considering that Valkyrie, as currently written, has been incredibly powerful as well?
Well, you just have to read the thing.
Okay. Will she have both powers at once?
Just have to read the thing.
So, Jane
But
Foster.
the thing is, I will say that thinking that Jane would be able to pick up the hammer and just be like, okay, cool. Like it did kill her at one point. And I'm very mindful of the story and how her relationship with the hammer, her relationship with the gods. And I hope that people know that we are mindful about all of the history. We care deeply about Jane at this point.
So the way that the hammer used to work was that it would wipe out the effects of her chemo. Now that her chemo is over, will it still wipe out the effects of her chemo?
I think this is obviously a spoiler, but no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We did have a discussion about that, but we figured like she first of all she has picked up the hammer since, and it's like she's not undergoing. She doesn't have cancer at the moment, and it felt kind of writing that in. If we're talking about like trying to make some kind of ridiculous, I should say I have no idea what you're doing in the movie at all, but if they're basing it on Jason's Torunn, then I assume that maybe Jane has cancer in the movies. There's like my only the only thing Marvel told me was like, hey, we want a new Jane Meanie, basically. That's what we want.
You're basically the go-to Jane writer at this point.
Well, the thing is, we had Valkyrie as the series that was we had planned for. That it was kind of paused, or it got kind of cancelled because of the pandemic, but we still had the beginning of what would become Mighty Valkyries. But we had the first issue out, and then the pandemic hit, and then no one was getting comics at all. So we were. And by the time we were getting back on, we were supposed to do the King in Black thing. So then we did King in Black, and then we went back and did Mighty Valkyries. So it kind of what was supposed to not be a bunch of minis turned into a bunch of minis, which I'm not mad about because I love writing a good mini, just because I enjoy the, the beginning, middle, and end of a story.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a nice thing. It's like a different seasons of a TV show.
Yeah, and I would obviously love to have the kind of it would be interesting to know that, like, if you have an ongoing, you can plant seeds and make things happen. And I keep doing that, and I have like a long-term plan in case I'm allowed to keep writing Jane, which I hope I can. But I don't mind the mini as a format. I really like it. The only thing that I will say that it needs to be quite action-packed, because we're trying to like it's all mythical and huge, and like in this one we get around, and I sometimes miss the quiet moments, and I know that a lot of the Jane fans really love to just see her interact with her friends and have a personal life, go to work, and we get a lot of comments on those scenes where it was just Jane being Jane instead of Jane kicking ass. And when you have a mini, because you have a story to tell, you kind of can't be like, well, we're going back to the apartment now to just have a glass of wine and talk.
Jane Foster, created in 1962, obviously was not treated the best for a very long time. Then Jason gets a hold of her, and she becomes Thor, and eventually becomes Valkyrie. Is any character beyond being, is any character lacking in the potential to be awesome?
Probably not. I think it's all about who is writing it, and I don't know what kind of stories you tell. It's how we made Craven work.
Craven is everywhere now.
I know, isn't that weird?
Like, what is that? What's going on?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel I would not say I feel responsible, but I've certainly been there and then contributed to the cravenness of everything. I don't know.
Like, what a random character to be popping up everywhere. So,
well, he does have he has a presence that you have to appreciate somehow. Craven is fantastic. I can't stop talking about Craven. I should really stop bringing up Craven all the time. I did the Doom Wastelanders, which was a tremendous amount of fun, because Wastelands is, Doom and Wastelands, it feels like a very much me kind of a thing. And in the podcast, they have Craven is a huge part of it. And I would say that I spent, because I knew what I wanted to do with Doom, but I was like, maybe I just want to work Craven in there. And I failed, but for a long time, he was the darling I had to kill, that I left like on a cutting floor, bloody and horrible, because it would be a lot of fun to have Craven in there.
Yeah, like I saw him in Daredevil, and I'm like, and somewhere else, and I'm like, but he's just fighting everyone right now.
Yeah, it's what he does. Like he just desperately tries to kill as much living things as possible.
That's why he's
by
the hunter.
hand. Yes, and like craftfully, not like a bomb. Yeah. What was the question again?
Is any character beyond
There we are.
the capacity to be awesome?
No, I don't think so. Do you have an example? Do you have like one you can whip out and be like, what about this one?
Okay.
Do you?
Dargo. Dargo.
Well, I mean, no, I really think you can do. It depends on how much reference you have to have for the past of everything. But I think you can do. I think you can save almost any character, but it depends on how seriously you want to take everything that's been done with that character, and if it matters, which I sincerely don't think that it does. Like I think you go into whatever you do trying to make a great comic book, and make it true to how you see the character. And if you do like a huge change of a character, you need to explain why that happened.
You mentioned earlier that getting into Carol Danvers, you immediately ran into the Superman problem. So here's my question. That is called the Superman problem. Thor and Superman are as powerful as each other. Why does Thor never have this problem?
Well, Thor fights like space gods and blah blah blah, like a mythical whatever. But Superman, he supposedly like he I wouldn't say he's a street level hero, but he is more like there are less. It feels less natural to be set the entire story like in another dimension, right?
Yeah.
And even with Carol Danvers, because you have the same problem. Anything that would happen on Earth would be something she would be able to fix somehow. She would be able to blast her way out of anything, which is why it's tempting to kind of send her up to space, where the obstacles are different somehow.
But with somebody like Jane, she'd end up fighting the people Thor Odinson would fight.
Well, the thing about Jane is that you want to find something she can fight that isn't necessarily just it's usually not like her fist that's going to solve the problem. It's usually going to be something else somehow. And it's going to be more complicated. There's going to be choices in there that she is going to have to make. And she will almost certainly land on the correct choice because she's Jane Foster, because her real strength is her heart and her kind of understanding and her experience. And it's not Undriarn, which is obviously a fantastic weapon. But very rarely does she kind of solve the book by smashing something, even though she could.
Jane Foster is an amazing character, and yesterday on Twitter you asked a question that I am now going to ask you. What was your favorite pre-Valkyrie Jane Foster moment?
It's a horrible question to ask. I realized my mistake. Yeah, I know. I realized my mistake 5 minutes after, because I was bawling, and every time someone would tweet me, there would be like, it would be 3 moments of her kicking ass and being funny, and then one that would just be like, and I would so I spent all of yesterday just crying, which was great, and also just appreciating how great Jason really is. It's annoying sometimes. I was reading Infinity Comics and on Marvel Unlimited, and I was reading one of the new Avengers, something, I don't know, and I got to this story that it's just so beautiful, and it's about this guy who is in a mine down in the planet, and there's blah blah blah, and it's so good. Like, who the fuck wrote this? And of course it's Jason, because He's good. So I don't know. I like. I love the parts every time she's in the hospital because it's so it's mindful, and I think what Jason did with Jane being sick in the hospital resonated so. It felt true to the people who have experienced that either themselves or have loved ones been like a lot of people read that and said this feels real. And I love the friendship. I love Volstagg and I love Thori with her in the hospital. But then I obviously have like the calm thyself down, like all the Jane being cool and punching Odin, which is always a favorite. Say goodbye.
Yeah,
it's all great.
Those are my two favorites. Say goodbye and my hammer comes for your face. I'm like a your face joke in a Thor comic. That's perfect.
Yes,
love it.
It's so great.
Okay, so what makes Jane Foster tick? I told you I'd ask this question out of all three of them.
Oh yeah, you didn't tell me. It's a good question. I would say, because you have like the obvious, your injustice and the blah blah blah, like with everyone. But I think she has a great like bullshit detector. Like she doesn't buy into people's image of themselves. She doesn't buy into she shows deference to no one, and if she is expected to do so, it will make her tick. I like that a lot. I like the I will show the respect you have earned, and unless you have earned it, you will get no respect. So other than your usual kind of common courtesy thing. I like that. Yeah.
And the comic is called Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor, so that does imply that at some point you will be writing Thor Odinson, which you will finally be writing Thor Odinson. How does that feel?
Well, I've written a few bits and pieces of Thor before. I like to ridicule Thor as much as I can.
Oh yeah, you wrote him Drinking with Runa, right?
Oh yeah, and he was in my first. I managed to cram in Thor within like the first issue I wrote for Marvel. Which is frankly a little terrifying because Will Moss was like, "Hey, this is like this kind of." I'm going to go into the whole thing we did in that arc, but he was like, "This is an Avengers level threat, so you should feel free to throw some Avengers in there." I'm like, "Oh."
Oh yeah.
And then it turns out, yeah. But then suddenly I have to be like, "Oh, I have to find like Tony Stark's voice and write Spider-Man." And then Jason was like, "Did you write it yet? Did you write the Spider-Man, your first Spider-Man line?" I remember mine. I'm like, "Oh no." It's horrible. But yeah, I managed to get Thor into the first Marvel book I ever wrote.
Well, this is like writing a Spider-Man line.
It's, I mean, petrifying. No, the thing is, I'm not haha funny. I'm more like a this is absurd kind of funny. But Spider-Man, he needs to be funny.
Or so corny, he's funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can do corny funny, but sometimes I'm just in awe when I read like Chip Zdarsky, who's just like it's so funny.
Zdarsky, Dan Slott, like those guys are like how?
Like effortlessly so funny all the time. Which I'm like I can do sometimes. I read the first script for Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor, and I was like, oh no, I forgot all the funny. It's all horrible. It wasn't entirely true because I had like it needs to be something light and funny here. But I can do like sincere and heartfelt and horrible and bloody. I can murder a lot of people, but funny, I know where it's supposed to be funny. I just need to work on it. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, this panel at some point will be funny. I'll keep
cool.
working on the other depressing nonsense. So that yeah, Spider-Man was it was a lot of fun, but a little terrifying.
So I feel like, obviously, I think Jane is a very hopeful character, and Carol is still hopeful, but is a little bit more on the cynical side. So let's go to the complete other end of the spectrum, with the one and only Frank Castle, the Punisher.
Yes.
In June, you are starting a series of 3 one-shots. The first one is called Blitz with Lan Medina.
Oh.
What's that about?
Well, this is first of all, this is one of the most fun, maybe not the correct word, but I have a great fondness for the Punisher. And Jason is obviously doing Punisher as now kind of the leader of the Hand. And he's got his story going, and then they were like, hey, we need 3 war journal stories. You can do whatever you want, just use Jason's prank, basically, and then just go ahead and do whatever you want. So the first one is I think this is out. It's where he's going after Hatemonger, because we have, like, in Jason's first issue, he mentions that, like, he's going after Hatemonger as one of the baddies he's going after. So we're kind of just seeing how that plays out. And Hatemonger in this case is not the traditional Hatemonger. It's someone who's kind of taken on the moniker and be like, hey, I like Hatemonger, I'm going to be Hatemonger. And it's not funny, but I enjoyed it.
I love the way you say that. Oh yeah, I just want to be hate monger.
Well, I mean, yeah. that's kind of what people are going for in general now, right? Yeah. They're just making up different symbols, and I mean, Hatemonger is extremely on the nose. But if you look at what people are doing these days, it is extremely on the nose. Everything, like irony is dead, truth is dead. I don't know what world we're living in. So it felt cathartic to write. Lan is obviously, I mean,
amazing.
I have no words. We had one panel. He had to change. He'd already done the pencils, but he had something that he wasn't supposed to have, and it felt like just being, can't take out an eraser on that perfection. It's so good. But then he obviously came up with something as great. So I don't know. It's so good.
It is difficult to take a look at the Punisher fighting the Hatemonger and not seeing it as a reaction to what's going on in the world, considering how certain groups in the real world are using the Punisher symbol. How much of that is a conscious reaction?
Well, I mean, there is a moment in the beginning there that I kind of, well, it's going to be interesting to see how people react. But in the end, like, all of these stories are very much about Frank and war, basically. Everything I've read my entire life has been military history. It's a tiny bit terrifying to kind of live through it now. I wish we could not.
Yeah.
We wish we could pretend
historical events would stop happening during my lifetime.
just slow it down a little bit. And I would say that the current state of the world, it didn't have like a huge impact on the story itself. But a lot of the points I make are kind of right there. So you will see a lot of the world and the absurdity of the groups that kind of take on literal hate symbols and try to tweak it into being something to be proud of, and to kind of just, I suppose, whitewash it and pretend it's something it's not, while the rest of us are just here being like, no, we know what it is. You can't. There's not enough bleach in the world, but you're still doing it. I don't know. So you will see that a little bit, but it wasn't as much a reaction to it as it was like we were talking about, like possible things, and hate monger was one of the things on the, like, we knew that was a possibility, and I always wanted to kill Hitler. So
what makes Frank Castle tick?
Well,
I feel like this
I
one
like
will have the shortest answer out of all three of them.
everything. It is what I found interesting about writing Frank, because I have 3 stories. They're quite different, and the last one is very much different. I know there's been some speculation online, and they think they know what it's going to be. It's not going to be that thing. And the interesting thing is that you somehow need to make your baddies so horrible that people will be happy to see them die. In general, just people. The readers will not be sad when they die, and it's an interesting challenge, because everything's kind of been done. You have the obvious things that people tend to go to, but I don't want to put like rapes in there. I don't want to do. So you need to be sort of clever to kind of figure out how can we make Frank Castle go and do his punishing without falling into the obvious and very well-trodden kind of fields. And I think that there is that feeling that Frank kind of goes for. We all have that in a way, that kind of, if you just killed that guy, then it would stop. And I think that's such a, I'm not ashamed of that kind of reaction. It's thoroughly stupid in many ways, and it wouldn't necessarily make any difference. And I think that Frank knows that. He knows that this isn't ideal. It's just that this is the job he's doing. So what makes him tick? Everything that ruins people's lives in a way that, like everything that costs so much that it's not possible to fix somehow. And then you have like the personal stuff. What would make Frank Castle punch someone in a bar? Well, that's a different thing. That's all of the third one. It's going to be the tiny things that make Frank Castle tick.
What's the second
I'm
one
so
about?
excited for that one. I don't want to say anything. It's just there are 3 quite different stories. There are 3 different artists, and they feel quite different, but they're all very much the Punisher.
I don't suppose you can tell us who the other 2 artists are.
No.
Okay. How do you think, is it tricky to write the Punisher today?
Well, I would say yes, because I've done more than anything else. You have to be original somehow, and that's always kind of a challenge when you deal with superheroes that have a lot of history. But I think at the end of the day, execution is the most important thing anyway. So even if you kind of touch on things that Frank has dealt with before, it doesn't necessarily matter as long as you execution is different. But as I said, like, you have to, people need to come along on the ride and agree that these guys deserve to die, and that's interesting, and it's not necessarily difficult, because there are a lot of people I think that can just but making something both interesting enough and not just like horror porn. That you have to be clever about it, and I hope that we've managed to do that so far.
How do you feel about the new symbol?
Well, I think it's I know a lot of people has a lot of thoughts about this, and I understand why Marvel wanted to change it. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me.
Okay.
Like I think it looks cool. Depends on who's drawing it. I mean it's I might I think Jason, they wanted to change the skull. They changed the skull. I've never found the skull the most interesting part of the Punisher, and I would say that it is one of those things that the way I understand Frank, and this is one of like the Punisher was one of those books that made me want to read more American comic books. I'm obviously from Norway, and we had a lot of French and Belgian and British comics, but not a lot of American. But the Punisher was always extremely interesting to me, and I've read most of the Punisher out there. I would say that I'm a huge Punisher fan, even though I recognize that there are a lot of horrible Punisher stories as well. But the way I understand Frank Castle, I don't think he would be like, I'm going to wear this shirt. I don't think so. So it is always one of those things that I understand that he needs to have a costume because he's not a superhero, but he's a superhero. So and we need to have him in something. But it doesn't really. I don't think that Frank would be like, oh no, I need to go back and get my shirt because I'm going out killing. I don't think he would do that. So it doesn't necessarily make a difference to me what the skull looks like. I accept that it needs to be there.
I feel like this is a very dumb question coming up next, or a question with a very obvious answer. But as a big Punisher fan, who was your favorite Punisher creative team?
Stop it. I guess. Okay. The
And
thing
why
is
is it your
that is
good friend Garth Ennis and your favorite artist ever, Steve Dillon?
no. The thing is, that was why I started reading The Punisher in the first place, I think, because I was a huge fan of Steve Dillon, and I was just like, I just want more, and where can I get more? And that was Punisher. So yeah, obviously, I told Garth that I was writing Punisher, and he's just the best. He's so supportive and nice, and he was like, hey, if you're getting shit for being a woman, just I will tell them off. You can women should like write Punisher. Garth Ennis, that could be the quote on the book. Like he's good about those kind of things.
Yeah, I was gonna ask,
but yeah,
like, how is he gonna tell him off? He's not on social media.
No, I mean, thank fucking God he's not on social media. He would, like, first of all, he would have like a cult following of, like, it would be horrible, and he would be angry. I don't know. He very early decided to not be on any kind of social media, and I think that was the right choice. I mean, I'm sincerely doubting my presence on social media these days. Like, it is a fascinating thing to have part of your life, but I don't know. I'm a child of the internet.
You're a positive presence on social media.
Well, I am. You will notice how I have no opinions on social media because I just don't have the patience to argue with people about anything. So I only try to be like, here is my comics, and here is a frozen waterfall. Welcome to this Swedish forest.
I do the type and then erase thing a lot. Type it and don't send it.
Yes. And speaking of Garth, sometimes if I'm really fucking annoyed about something, I will not tweet, I will just text him and he will come back with something that is so insightful and ridiculous and great. And I would just put everything into perspective in the nicest of ways, and I will feel calm. Or more angry.
Did he give you any advice about writing The Punisher?
No. I'm sure he would have if I asked, but I don't know.
Have you gotten shit for being a woman writing The Punisher?
I've gotten no, not necessarily yet. I've gotten a couple of like DMs for people asking me like, oh, what's your favorite Punisher stories if you're such a fan? Like those kind of
Oh, those
questions.
guys. Yeah.
Just because just the immediate knee-jerk response of like you couldn't possibly like, and I just ignore them, and we'll see.
Those
But
guys are so stupid because it's like they come up with these stupid questions a lot of the time, like okay, what happened in issue number whatever, and I'm like, I can't answer them.
why?
These questions are designed to be failed.
Yeah, of course, and the second you start answering them, you've kind of already lost. And the thing is, I'm 38. Yeah, 30. No, I'm going to be 38 in a few months. And I've been into metal. I'm a Norwegian. I've been listening to metal my whole life. I started coding when I was 11, which means that I've been into like a hardcore kind of computer geeky environment for a long time. I read comics. I play Warhammer. There is not a version of this question that I haven't gotten. There is no way to answer it politely or kind of win. What's your favorite Metallica album? Fuck off. Like it's just there's no way to like if you tell them to fuck off, they'll be angry. If you can't answer, they'll be like you've proven that you're not a fan. And at this point, I'm just tired. I just don't answer anymore. I'm not a performing monkey. I don't do lists. I don't have like a repertoire of perfectly timed, like my favorite whatever in my head. So I just don't answer anymore. But it is fascinating how many different fields I've been able to get that. What you're in. It's a lot.
Do you think, because we're about the same age, so do you think maybe that whole thing about knowing that having that kind of knowledge, because I feel like I was more serious about knowing things off the top of my head, and then the internet showed up and I'm like, well, now I can just look that up. I don't need to remember stuff.
Yeah, and if you have to rank things, I don't like all my favorites are problematic. Like it is nothing like I have to explain why I like even my favorite movies would be like, well, it's because of this. Like it's never just, oh, it's because it's quality. That's why I love it. And I'm not interested in input. Like I don't want people to be like, oh, that's interesting. But have you tried? Like I don't want notes on my favorite movies or favorite albums or whatever. I like what I like. And it is like I worked in a music store, like in a record shop for a few years. And the sheer amount of, oh, you have to, like it's the high fidelity joke, like the five best, your top five, whatever the fucks. Like I don't know. I if I listen to something and I know that it isn't necessarily great, it's just that it hit me on the absolute correct time. And now I love it, even though it really sucks, really. I love it. And I don't want to have to defend my irrational love for,
Yeah, I get that. So this is great because now I want to ask this question. If you could assign a soundtrack to these three characters, who would, which artist would be playing which character?
This is going to be one of those questions. I will answer this the next time because I want to need to think about this.
I mean, you can change your answer the next time. So what about just what genre of music would they fall into?
Well, the thing about like Carol, she could probably do a lot of things, including like depressing, like blues country that she would enjoy while not drinking because she's technically an alcoholic, so she shouldn't be drinking.
Right,
Like she could
true.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like she could vibe with a lot of things, and she got the Boston kind of heritage. So maybe some more like Americana rock and roll, like maybe like for the working people kind of rock and roll, like Bruce Springsteen maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
80s rock.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think so. Like not necessarily like full on. I like that a wigwam after
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. Yeah. This is a Norwegian band
They are?
that makes and I think so. And it's one of those kind of jokes that we've had for a long time, because we like our metal to be metal, and then we have these guys just fucking around, and then suddenly like they're so popular, like there's just there's a lot of fun. So maybe not like full on wigwam, and I think 80s rock, that's cool. Yeah.
What about Jane?
Well, Jane, I'm sincerely unsure about. Like, I have some ideas, and I have some music that I listen to when I write Jane. But I don't think she would be as prog rocky as I am when I write Jane.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think she would listen to Opeth, even though I do when I write Jane.
Because Thor Odinson would be flat out heavy metal, right?
No, he would be. Oh, he would listen to pop music. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
We had this discussion sometimes, me and Jason. I'll send him some like Thor would do this, right? And go, yeah. And as always, like there's scented candles, there's bubble baths. Like we have a very specific idea about Thor.
Does Frank Castle even listen to music?
Well, this is an interesting thing, because I have a very clear idea what I think Frank would do when he's kind of civilian, and we don't spend a lot of time. Well, I don't spend a lot of time in the first two with civilian Frank, because it's all business, and it's been something I kind of missed a little bit with this new kind of version of him, that I want to be able to see him in a bar enjoying the night somehow. Like he should be able to at some point have a beer, have a whiskey, and enjoy some music that I don't think would be extremely. I don't think he is prog rock. I think he's more rock and roll, whatever is cool in the background, as long as it's not too. I don't think he would enjoy going to the opera or something.
Although that would be something. Okay.
That would be something.
Anything else that you wanna plug, you wanna talk about before we go?
Well, there's a lot of fun things coming up. We can talk about, I don't know, next time. I do hope that I hope people read the Doom Wastelanders thing, because it's just a standalone issue, and it's an interesting peek into the Wastelanders thing.
And what was it like writing Dr. Doom?
It was fucking amazing. I could do it all day. Kind of scary how fast I was like, oh yeah, here we are. Doom is in my head. I'm enjoying it. I would love to write more Doom. Yes, it was great. And then obviously Captain Marvel Annual is out today, or it's been out for a while by the time you listen to this. And
June
Punisher.
is the Punisher and Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor. Awesome.
I'm so happy you remember that, because at this point I was quite surprised to find that we were in April. Like I've lost all sense of
2020. The first 3 months of 2022 have been quite a year. So
yeah, it's been quite a decade. Like it's been, I don't know. It's the only real difference to me is because I've been working from one chair in the living room, not in my studio, because and this is one of those strange things when you say it out loud, when it's just like, well, electricity is so expensive now because of So we had to, and I have a house, there's a music studio and my studio. And that's usually fine, but we're paying, like if we have everything on here, we're paying $70-80 a day
Holy
in
crap.
electricity. Yeah, so that's not going to work. So when it's been really, really cold, I've just been in the living room in my reclining chair, working away, because heating the studio, though it isn't huge, it's still like, it's suddenly it's like, oh, it's $25-30 a day to heat the goddamn studio. Like, it's just absurd. So I just, when like during the winter months, I've been just using it when I really need it.
I can understand that.
Yes. So we're in a fun, it's going to be interesting to see if there's any wheat to be bought. We'll see if you can get flour in the fall. We'll keep living through history and seeing what happens.
Yeah, if we could only get back to boring, that would be great.
Tiny bit of boring. That would be good.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on Frank and Jane and Carol.
Thank you for putting up with my whatever this is.
It's
It's
always
always
pleasure.
lovely to talk to you.
Always.